Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. So I'm here with tier 2 cars. We're going to go through all of them that I have in my garage, and we're going to discuss which ones are good for Tempest, why, and what are some of the issues you may run into with each of these cars. So starting right off, we're going to go with the Alpha 4C Spider. I have an old video on how to set up this car. This is still one of the top Tempest cars in tier 2 if you have the parts. Now, it's much easier to max these cars out now than before, so the 4C Spider definitely is one of the top choices, mainly because it sprints well, it also speed traps well, and it'll run the time without much of an issue. At no point in the Tempest series will you run into a lot of issues with this car. Moving right along, next three are no good. This is no good, that's no good, that's no good. So don't even bother with these cars. The Exceed Sport 350 Roadster, also not good. So we're moving on to the next one. That would be the 845 AMG. The AMG will struggle, particularly with the sprint at the 434 performance point, where it does struggle a bit to get set up properly for that sprint. Other than that, this car has high top speed, good times, and would easily beat the rest of the challenges. Again, in my old video, I do have the setups to deal with the particular sprint that you're going to struggle with. Now, moving beyond that, there's always the top pick here that a lot of people recommend, and that is the Porsche 718 Boxster S. The key things to keep in mind for this car is to make sure you keep engine stock at all tunes, make sure you don't use stage 6 transmission, and the rest of these try to have stage 6s, although you do not necessarily need it all of them to have stage 6s. You could probably get away without intake, for example, but generally speaking, you want a maxed car, but you will never use engine or transmission stage 6s for any of the settings. Again, that's the first car I show you in my old video. Moving right along, we are now looking at the next one in the series that can make this happen, and that is the 2017 Civic Type R. This actually is a pretty good car for the purpose of doing this. It is generally a good car all around, sprints pretty well, speed traps pretty well. Now, this is only at 428, but you can certainly adjust it to try to do better. Where this car may struggle a little bit is the same place as a lot of other tier 2 struggle, and that is when you get to the 434 performance points, where the 0 to 60 is a 2.654. That's actually pretty difficult for a lot of these tier 2 cars, but this one, again, the settings are already in my old video, so I'm not going to separately show you. Moving on, the M235i. Now, I've done a video on Tempest 1 and 2 for this car, not so much for Tempest 3, but this car actually sprints well, does good speed. Where it falls flat in Tempest 3 originally is without the elite upgrades, it's really tough to get under the final boss time of that 10.1, and that makes it too risky to use as a car. However, now that it's an elite tuner car, you can elite upgrade. I would recommend rank at least 15, where you have enough elite upgrades in this car to be able to get enough fusions, additional fusions in to get into the 9s, and that makes it now a good car for Tempest 3 as well. So that brings us to the next one, the WRX STI. Ignore that car. Scirocco R, ignore that car. Exceed 360 Cup, better than the Exceed 360 Roadster. The Cup is probably capable, but I wouldn't really put my money on this car either. I would say the next one to look at would naturally be one of the best in the series, and that is the 250 GTO. You only really need stage 6 tire to make it through. I have a video on this car. I would definitely recommend this car if you didn't, of course, elite license it because you were live racing it. This is one of the top choices in tier 2. The next one on the list would be the Golf GTI Rocket Bunny. Now, this is a good Tempest car for tier 2. The problem with this car lies in when you get to the 434 Sprint. It's a little tricky with this car, mainly because it doesn't like to sprint well, and that is where you need to kind of tweak this car a little bit to try to get that sprint done. I would drop mostly parts out of here, out of D3 to get you down to the 434 range. I don't think you can get away with too many parts because a lot of the stuff pushes it beyond that. Of course, you could always get rid of a stage 6 to kind of mess around with the numbers. With nitrous, this car actually isn't that bad a sprinter, despite the numbers not looking that great to start with. With the 5.0, it'll get to 2.9 here, and then as long as you do a quick dump on the launch and hit that nitrous, you should be good for that 2.65. Let's go ahead and try it. Okay, it needs third gear really to hit 60 to be pretty good, but it's not too bad. I mean, you get that 0 RPM drop, but that actually combined with nitrous should give you a pretty good 0 to 60 run, 1.9, so no issue there. This is one of the better choices overall for Tempest, as long as you understand that for speed traps, this card's a little tricky as well. You need to use nitrous really late to get the speed traps done. So not a bad choice either. Moving beyond the Golf GTI Rocket Bunny, the DB5 is no good. The Siege LF1. Now this car is capable, unlike the Cup, but don't forget you can't even get the Cup until you beat. I forgot to mention that the 360 Cup is actually Finn's car. So you got to beat Finn to get the 360 Cup. That's why that car shouldn't even be considered, because you won't have it. Now, the LF1 looks good by the numbers. Where it's a little bit tricky is this 140 mile per hour. Now, it's not to say the car is not capable of hitting that, because it's, you know, the top speed is pretty close. I think with a little bit of nitrous push, you should be able to get there. But this is one of those cars that might struggle a little bit when it comes to the speed traps, and you don't want to be stuck with a car that ultimately gets you really close and doesn't get you through. So that one, yeah, I don't highly recommend this car, quite honestly. I mean, if you have no other choices and you actually can get enough Lotus parts to get it done, sure. But notice it got stuck at 137. I think I ran out of nitrous, that's why. So that's going to be a little bit of a tricky car to use for that. Oh, there it is. With nitrous, you get to 141. So it is capable. It's just that I don't like this car for the purpose of trying to get through the challenges. It shouldn't have a problem with the sprints, but it may have some issues throughout with the speed traps. And again, speed traps only an issue in Tempest 3, not Tempest 2. So it's not terrible, but it's something to consider. The next one is the Mini Cooper, John Cooper Works GP. Now, notice I have it at 431. The same thing with the Golf GTI, and later with the A1110 we're going to look at. The problem with this car is going to be this, okay, the 0 to 60 at the 434. It is capable of it with the setup I have. It's more of a parts setup issue than an actual tuning and driving issue. You don't want nitrous. This car doesn't really benefit from a lot of nitrous. You want all this stuff in, but not nitrous to get that 434. And then, even then, it doesn't look great on this. It's still kind of off, but it'll run under it. So thankfully, with a kind of a skip gear setup, I mean, you're not actually going to worry about first gear, second gear too much. You basically launch, go right into second or third, okay, and then done. And that will let you basically run a little bit under that 2.6. You get like a 2.5 something 0 to 60, which is what you need to get through that challenging 0 to 60. 2.557 is good enough. But again, I'm leveraging stage 6s to pull that off too, so you got to keep that in mind. As good as this car is, it has a little bit of a struggle at that point. Now, where is my Alpine? Nope, 300 SL Coupe. Now, fully elite, this one should be capable of it as well. The problem with this car, same thing. The sprint is not its strong suit, so I would avoid this car ultimately for the reason of this. Okay, it's very hard, even fully maxed, to get a good sprint out of this car, and it's just not. It's not that it's impossible. I mean, it is possible to get close, but this is fully maxed, mind you. At 434, you're really gonna struggle. I mean, maybe not fully maxed. It's pretty close. At 434, you're really gonna struggle. I wouldn't recommend this car for that purpose, mainly because of that. Now, somebody may pop on and say, well, I did it with the 300 SL Coupe. Congratulations if you did. I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's going to be real tough. And quite honestly, I don't want the headache to deal with that. So that brings us to the 8110, which is capable of doing the entire Tempest series. The main thing about this car is the same issue. At 434, it struggles with the sprints, and that's where you have the best. You're going to come up with like a 2.8. It is once again a car that hates nitrous. Not a nitrous driven car, not for the purpose of sprints, maybe for you know, for getting through the speed traps. Sure, nitrous will help. A lot of tier 2s need nitrous for the speed traps, but for sprints, this car, much like the GP, does not really care for the nitrous. If you use it, it doesn't actually help you. So what are you gonna do? What you're gonna do is you're gonna end up using a NA setup with more power, pushing it, and then all you're gonna do is basically try to get through this way. Okay, so we're kind of using a little bit of second gear, third gear, fourth gear to get through, and that will usually barely gets us under that number that we need. And I'm not seeing it yet. I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but again, I do have a video on how to do it. It's just a little bit of a struggle overall to get this thing exactly right. Let me try one more time, so at least we can try to have it on this video rather than having it on the other one only. Okay, so the key here is with this is that second gear, third gear, fourth gear, it depends on the gearing. I think you have to skip the second, that's for sure. Up, getting close. Okay, so I think it's skip the second, and then how deep I go in second before I go into third. That's the real trick here to get that. But again, as you can see, it's a bit of a struggle with this car for that particular challenge. Although, for the most part, for the rest of the challenges is pretty good. It's just that particular challenge, this car definitely struggles. And that's the 434 performance point, 0 to 60 sprint. That actually turns out to be one of the toughest challenges in Tempest 3 Tier 2 altogether. There it is, 2.565. Okay? All right, that took a few tries, but we got it. Again, I have a separate video on that, but I just want to at least show you it's capable of it. Now, the next one that I have kind of messy over here, I didn't really get the car set up, is the Arc Performance Velociter. I have it on a negative tune for probably for some kind of map thing that I was doing for Hyundai. But let's go back and take a look. Right, this is basically fully maxed. We'll put it to 434 first. I can tell you that it should have no issues with sprints, nor should it have any real issues with speed traps. So obviously it's tuned a little differently than it needs to be, but what do we got here? Ooh, that's not looking too good. All right, so 53. Okay, and 3.9. Ew, doesn't look good. Hold on. 3.477 is not going to cut it. This is not boding well for this car for that sprint. Maybe that's why I didn't really. Well, let's take a look. I mean, people have told me this car is definitely capable of it. Let me see if I'm just doing something wrong here. It felt like a relatively decent 0 to 60. Whether that's going to be a 2.5, 2.6, yeah, may have to play with the parts a little bit. I didn't actually tune this. This is one that, oh, no problem. Never mind. Take that back. You're good. Right? So, despite its lousy numbers, this one actually runs way under its numbers for the sprints. So, you're good to go. And once fully maxed, of course, It'll hit all the rest of the numbers as well. Speed trap, just use nitrous a little bit later and you should be good to go. And that kind of covers pretty much all the ones that I can think of here that would do the job in... Oh, we almost forgot the best. Leave the best for last, right? This guy I have its own video for, because this car basically can beat everything at stage 5 only, including the 434 Sprint. I have it set up here for you guys to look at. Again, this is one of those guys that don't need nitrous to pull off the Sprint, and its mile per hour is so high anyway, you'll never have a problem with the speed traps. And look at this, 9.9 at 433, so it's already destroying the entire event at 433 performance point. This is hands down the best tier 2 for Tempest. No ifs, ands, or buts. Okay, you basically can't... Oh well, I screwed that up. But you basically can't lose with this car on Tempest. Get the Mazda Fusions in it. As long as you have like tier 5, I mean stage 5 upgrades, you basically just blow through the event. All right, I screwed that up a little bit. Let me redo that. This is not a car you go instant second on. You basically just run in normal. Here we go. And second gear in at 60, and that should be a decent 60. Again, I haven't done anything with these cars for ages, so I'm kind of refreshing as I'm making this video, but 2.629 is good enough. All right, it gets under that 2.65. You could probably get a little faster than that as well. And there it is. That's the whole list of all the cars in Tempest, I mean in tier 2 that can do Tempest 1, 2, and 3. The top one being the Rocket Bunny MX-5 Miata. The second best, in my opinion, would be your Ferrari 250 GTO, and then actually, believe it or not, one of the easier fully max ones to use after that would be the 4C Spider, and it goes from there. Of course, the GTI, the John Cooper's GP, and also the ARC Performance Veloster is a very good choice as well. None of these guys ultimately will get it done without some stage 6 except for that Mazda, and many of them really have to be fully maxed to truly shine. So keep that in mind. You need full fusion, full upgrades, except for this guy. You know, this one definitely don't need much. Like the Veloster, the GP, and the GTI probably won't need full stage 6s either. But 4C definitely full stage 6. The Boxer S is still an excellent option at all times, and then of course the Civic Type R is still a good choice as well. So good luck with Tempest. Feel free to ask me questions about any specifics that you don't understand with one of these cars, and then I will try to answer them in the comments. If you find that there's another option I completely missed, feel free to add it in and let people know. And if you like the video, please leave a like, share it with your friends. This will get this out there so people will get the answer to the question about Tempest 3 Tier 2. If you like my videos and like this kind of videos, to be, like to be notified, I guess, when I put up these kind of videos, subscribe, hit the bell, and you get notified when I put up new videos. And as always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.